Well, good morning everybody, and what a cracking day we've got here today. A little bit of breeze, nothing bad at all, the sun's shining, it's beautiful. The weather wise they are giving us cloud moving in this afternoon, which is going to spoil everything. The pond does need a bit of a clean out again. As you can probably see on the bottom there, we've got a bit of fish poop kicking about. We'll get that hoovered out. We can actually see now the sun's on it, this lily this end, it's come to nothing at all, they've absolutely eaten it. I shall probably take that one out of there. The wife tells me I've also got to get the lawns cut, so I've got that job to do. Well, as you can see, I've had a very busy morning. Well, it's afternoon now, but I've had a very busy morning and half of the afternoon. The pond's had a good backing out. I then got the old chest waders on and got in the pond and give it a good old do. Oh, I got the old lily out. Crikey, there's no dirt left in that, they've had it all. Look at the size of that lily. It's twisting everywhere. So that's got that out. I've been wanting that out for ages. I have trimmed off the lily a little bit more, but also I've trimmed off any branches that was touching the water off the trees around the pond. I did find a couple of frogs behind them stones, but yeah, we've got it all tidied up. I'm quite pleased about that. But that lily, it's grown every which way. I haven't had that out for 3 years, I must be honest, and it pays to have them out every 2 years. So we'll get that out. I think I'll do away with that one. We don't really need it with this one in here, but this is all the stuff I've cut off, taken out, pulled off any way I could. Still got my vac to put away yet. We're still cloudy in there, still can't see a lot in the pond up to yet, but what a major job done. I've also, the lights that were on the other side of the pond lights, I've taken them off and I'm going to put them down this side with these others. That I didn't like them there. I did wedge them in the rocks and that sort of thing along there, but the light in your eyes when you're trying to look at your pond is terrible. I've taken them off. I'm going to put them in down this side to join the others. I did get a few winter plants in along the top in the boxes, took the others out, and we went and got a few winter plants yesterday. So that should see us through the winter. Few pansies in the pots, winter pansies, got them in. What I'm going to do at the end of this season is get rid of that grass out of the pond. I don't like it. All them little bits of grass do end up in your pond. I'm going to remove that and we'll have something else in there. I've just got to get all this lot cleared up now. Cleared up and disposed of. I've had a good old day today. Well, there we go, everything's cleared up and tidied up, everything's been put away. I've got the lights fitted, so we've got double lights down this side now. I'll just have to set them up tonight and get them pointing in the right direction, but that's done. All the overhanging branches that was in the water, they're all cut off, the lilies tidied up. I did find a couple of more bulbs coming through, don't know whether you can see them, there's one down there. And there's one across there, so I'll pull them through. They couldn't seem to get through to the top, so we'll see if they come out. But that's about it. I'm going to call it a day. Cup of tea. It's getting nearly 5 o'clock, so the wife will be home from work soon. So I'm going to call it a day, guys. Job's well done. Okay, I'm going to do the fluke salt treatment, and this time I have remembered to turn the protein skimmer off. Last time when I did the formaldehyde treatment, it was a good job I'd cleaned that bucket out, because after about half an hour, 3/4 of an hour, I came in here and that bucket was just full of formaldehyde, deep blue. It had taken it all out, and it was a good job, like I say, I'd cleaned the bucket out, because I had to take the bucket and tip it back in the pond, shut this down and tip the bucket back in the pond. It had just taken the formaldehyde straight out of the water. So this time with the fluke salt I have actually shut the skimmer down, so that'll be down for a couple of days. Well guys, as they said, it will come cloudy in the afternoon. It's quite cloudy, the sun keeps trying to poke through the clouds. Now I have added the dose of fluke salt treatment. It's nearly 2 weeks since I did the formaldehyde, so we've got plenty of air going in the pond. If you ever do these treatments, do make sure you've got plenty of air in the pond. As you can see, I've got my 5 air stones around the pond. I've taken my inflow pipes off, so they're banging air in, and I've also got, I don't know whether you can see it, across the other side, water going in from the actual pond skimmer. It's adding air as well. So we've got plenty of air going in there. But if you ever do one of these doses, do be careful, because the fluke salt can make them quite lively. What it does is disturbs the flukes, and the flukes start getting a bit agitated, which makes the fish agitated, and they can jump and do get a bit lively once the stuff starts to get a hold of the fluke. So don't treat and leave it, always stay with your pond. Never ever do a treatment and leave your pond just in case. But stay with them for a while, and especially towards the night they'll get a bit livelier. I put it in about an hour ago. They've calmed down a little bit, but they was quite excited when I first put it in. But we'll see how it goes, and that should sort that little problem hopefully. Now here in the sea filter, I'll just show you, I'm back on the 90-degree bend. Now what I have found with this bend, it does take out all the big stuff, but the smaller waste does actually go through, which is not too bad. It's only the big stuff I want taking out, like the leaves, the bigger algae and that sort of thing, to stop it going into my drain. As you may know, my RDF waste goes to the drain. So the smaller I can keep that waste, the better. I don't want it causing any problems with the drains. So I'm back on the 90 at the moment. Instead of having the spreadboard, I usually have a spreadboard across here which spreads it across. That does take a lot more of the waste out. But I'm not bothered about the smaller stuff getting through into the RDF. It will cope with that and sort it out. So it's not a problem at all. That's the pipe I've just drained some water off the actual protein skimmer with, because the water in the bottom of it had actually been there 4 or 5 days. So I drained some off just to stop that being a problem, so it was all clean and fresh water in there. I've just switched it on about 5 minutes ago, and we're making skimmet already, as you can see. But yeah, it's all working well now, it's okay. The fluke salt has pretty much gone out the pond, I would imagine. So I've got that back up and running. Well, good morning everybody, and we've got a fantastic morning here this morning. Although they tell us we are going to lose this weather, it's about dinner time at the moment, and you will notice I've still got my fence around my pond on, and I have still got my water sprinkler on, so I'll just turn that off before I forget and get wet. But we've got that turned off. But I've still got the fence around the pond up, because we're quite lucky really. The wife gets up about 5 o'clock, and she came outside just as the biggest blooming heron you've ever seen came just over the top of that bush, and I think was going to land in the garden until it saw her, and it did a massive turn around and went up and over that way somewhere. So that was about 5:30, 6 o'clock this morning. She left me a note that the heron had been close to the back garden. I came down at 7:15, sat at the table having a cup of tea, and all of a sudden it landed on this piece of fence here. Looked in the pond several times, looked at the house, saw me looking at it through the back door and took off. So I've got a heron problem, and luckily I've found out before it's too late. With a heron problem, you don't really realise you've got one until you notice your fish missing. So we've been pretty lucky really. We know it's about. We are in a pretty bad area for that sort of thing really. We're out in the country, so they are right. You'd think here, well, we're pretty closed in. They're not going to see it. We've got trees all around us. I'm sorry, that's into the sun. But we've got trees all around us, pretty well shaded. But unfortunately it doesn't work like that. A heron's got incredible eyesight, and they can be flying as high as they like and spot a pond, and to be quite honest, it must look like a McDonald's to them. They home in on them and they know exactly where they are. So I want to talk a bit about herons. I'm going to show you some of the problems people have had, and I also want to talk about what really works and what doesn't, which is a very difficult subject. but I want to talk about the herring and see what we can actually do about it and the precautions we need to take. There's nothing worse than seeing your prized possessions go down a bird's throat, as you will see in a few of these clips I'm about to show you, which has happened to one or two YouTubers. Now I've asked these guys if they would kindly give me the permission to show these clips, and they've agreed, so thanks to them guys. I will name them. I will leave their names and a link to their channel in the description, so if you want to go watch the full video you can, but let's just talk about the heron. Okay guys, here's a couple of facts you may or may not know about the blue heron, or the great blue heron. Did you know if the heron scares your fish to the bottom of the pond, it will gain their confidence by feeding your fish? It will regurgitate its food and drop it into your pond, and the fish will feed on this, and this is how it gains your fish's confidence. You will know this has happened because it will look like somebody has dropped some oil onto the surface of your pond, so you will know it's taken place. Another fact about the blue heron: did you know the heron will hunt for 24 hours straight on a full moon? If it can see, it will fish, and it will go looking for fish. So a full moon, if it's a nice bright full moon, it will carry on fishing for 24 hours. What sort of size fish can a herring swallow? Well, believe me, they can swallow anything up to 10 inches to a foot long. Anything around 30 centimetres, and a heron will be able to eat it. In this next clip we're going to a gentleman's pond who's kindly let me have the footage from his pond cam. He's actually got a full tripwire around the pond to stop herons. He's also got a fence across this end. So we'll see the heron come in from the left. The foam on the pond is from an ongoing algae treatment he is doing at the moment. Now bear in mind there is still a tripwire there. That doesn't deter the heron. It walks across and sees the fish, and as you see it strike to get the fish, it does trip over the tripwire. Now as you'll notice, this is a garden in a built up area, just a normal garden. Beautiful pond. As you can see, there's other houses and gardens all around this pond, and that hasn't bothered the heron at all. Okay, so now the heron decides it wants to go around the other side of the pond, and makes its way around there and finds a nice clear bit in the foam where it can actually see the fish, and instantly finds one just the right size and strikes again. Not only that, thinking it's a good spot, does exactly the same again. That's 3 koi already. Terrible. This just goes to show how much actual damage a heron can do to your pond in a very short time. Now a heron does actually like standing in the water to fish. If it can get in the water, it's at its happiest. So it does like to wade into the water. Here's a heron getting into a pond with a large amount of tripwires, and the heron doesn't seem fazed by it at all. Just takes them all in his stride. Now the heron's real favourite is ponds with sloping walls. Walls of the pond that slope in towards the middle. This is when a heron will actually dive into the pond because it knows it can get out without a lot of problems. Now this next video will show you a pond that's got a fence around it to keep the heron out, and it's also got a plastic heron by the pond, and he's also got a net on the pond, so you'd think that would be a perfect deterrent for a heron. Okay, now here we go. Well, the dummy heron doesn't really seem to be doing much at all. The fence seems to be holding it back. If I was him, I'd ask for my money back on the decoy heron. The fence seems to be working at the moment. Now he's gone round the other side, checking the fence out again. I think you've got your fence post just a little too wide, mate. Not only that, the heron is now walking on his pond net that's on the surface of the pond. It's actually walking across the pond net itself. So that's only helping the heron. Now the problem with the pond net being on the surface of your pond, like you've just seen, the heron will walk across the top of the net. Now it can't get your fish, but what it does is pierce your fish with its beak trying to get them. It will do a lot of damage, being as it doesn't get a fish, it will have a go at any that it can get at, so it could do an awful lot of damage. Now in this next clip of a pond, we're going to see a gentleman who has had a big problem with the heron. It's returning to his pond daily, and he has absolutely tried everything to stop this heron eating his koi, and as a last resort has resulted to an electric fence. Now I don't know whether you know about these electric fences, but they send out a 1 second pulse on every so many seconds, so there's probably half a minute or more between pulses. But here's the picture of a heron at his pond again with the electric fence. Now you can clearly see the heron on the back side of his pond, weighing up his pond and weighing up the fish. And then all of a sudden gets the 1 second pulse of the electric. Just look what happens next. The heron is actually feeling the wire to see if it was that gave it the electric shock. Let's just see that in close-up. The heron is actually feeling the wire to see if it's still live, so that it doesn't get another electric shock. Feels everything is okay and just carries on as if nothing's happened. That's just how determined these birds can be. But these are the steps I've taken to protect my pond against the blue heron. We'll start with the fence. Now the fence I have around mine at the moment is the one I made when I first built the pond. It's very easy to take off. It takes me about a minute to take it off, less than 2 minutes to put it back. All it is like dowels. I don't know whether I can show you. I've drilled some holes in the copings so that the dowel just slots into it. Now I've used wooden dowel, and to be quite honest I don't think these are strong enough. They're getting weak anyway, weak and old, and there has been, with the high winds, it snapped a couple of them off, which I've sort of bodged and repaired for now. But what I shall do, and I'm going to do now, is replace them. I shall get some stainless steel rods instead and use them, and I shall have a new bit of net, because this one has actually got holes in it here and there now, so I need a new bit of net, and I'm going to do it all again. But I thought all about this when I built my pond. I knew what I was going to do, and that goes all the way round, so it does restrict the heron from this side of the pond. Now from the other side of the pond, as you can see, what I've done is block it all off with these are evergreens, so they're there all year round, and I've blocked it off with bushes. It's very difficult for anything to land, and certainly fish, from that side of the pond. It's got to land and take off from there. Heron's not daft, it's got to have a good access. That's the reason for these, the other side of the pond. That one I'm just waiting to grow a little bit more. I want that a little bit higher. That's very prickly and sharp, that thing. I wouldn't want to land in there. But that's how I've done yon side, and that's how I've done this side. The only place that is susceptible is the top piece where the wall is, and this is why I have plant boxes along the top there, just to make it awkward for it. And it's also going to be very difficult for it to reach down to the water. Now from now on, this time of year, as the water is starting to cool down, as you'll know, all your ponds are starting to cool down, the rivers and lakes and that sort of thing, they're all cooling down, so the fish are going deeper into the rivers and lakes and making it more difficult for the heron to catch anything. So this is the time of year when they're coming inland and looking for our ponds. So from now on, until I get my pond covers on, I'm going to have to be quite vigilant as far as the pond goes, especially where we live. Once I've got my pond covers on, I'm quite safe. I can forget all about it because I can't get at them anyway. But it's just from now until then. And like I say, I'm going to repair all this fence, do a new one actually, and I shall use steel bars this time as the wood. It's lasted, I mean it's lasted 4 or 5 years. But it's time to get replaced and I want something a little bit stronger, so I shall use steel rods instead of the wooden. But this is a bad time of the year for them, so do be more vigilant around your pond. As most of you know, I use a sprinkler. This is a motion activated sprinkler. If anything moves in front of it, it fires out a jet of water. I don't think the water puts the heron off. I think it's the fact of the noise it makes and being surprised that does the scaring off. Now if I just turn the sprinkler on, just switch it on, and as you will see, any motion in front of it, if I just sort of give it one of that, it gives a good old spray right down the garden. And I think it's as much of the noise and the surprise that actually spooks a heron or whatever's in the back garden. I mean, all these plants this side, down this side, it also stops cats. So if there's any cats about, it will stop them from sort of getting to the pond. And the same with the net. Cats aren't too bad. It's very doubtful, unless your fish are very small, it's doubtful a cat will do a lot of damage. Well, I hope that's given you guys a bit of an insight into what you've got to look out for and some of the precautions you can take to avoid one of the biggest disasters a pond can come across. Just to make you guys a little bit more aware. We've no idea of what it's like until it actually happens to us. So I just hope that's given you guys a bit of an insight. Well, as you can see down there, the new fence has come for the pond. I've got the steel bars down there and the fencing itself, but unfortunately I'm not going to get it up today because the wind out here is absolutely atrocious. It's going to be blowing all over the place. Don't know whether you'll get any idea from the trees. So I'm going to leave that one for the next one. So you'll see how I do that in the next vid. I'm now going to go inside and get out of this wind. It is actually quite cold out here. So I'm going to do a runner indoors. I've rambled on enough now, so I'm going to call it a day. All it leaves me to say is thanks for watching. You all take care. And as always, happy ponding.